So sometimes I'll get comments in my comment section that are valid questions and multiple people have them, so they're worthy of addressing, but they're not necessarily worth making an entire video about. So I figured in this video I would just kind of go through a bunch of the questions that I've seen and then just sort of bundle them together in a nice little package. Anubis FGC says, how long have you been into Tekken? It's pretty crazy to just pop up and gain traction in 2 weeks unless you've been around, both in the Tekken community and in the YouTube game. So I've only been playing Tekken since Tekken 7, and I wasn't even really like an obsessive Tekken 7 player. I had about 1,000 hours logged in that game, and now playing Tekken 8 sort of obsessively over the past few weeks. I've got about 200-ish hours there, so 1,200 hours logged on Tekken total. But I've been a member of the FGC since 2009. I've traveled for a moderate amount of tournaments. I haven't been to like multiple majors a year or anything like that, but I've mostly been somebody who never got to the highest level playing any singular game, but bounced around and just sort of enjoyed playing everything with everybody. I played a lot of anime fighters, played a lot of like Street Fighter, grounded games, KOF, 3D games like Tekken, Soul Calibur, platform fighters, Melee, Ultimate, Rivals of Aether, older games like Third Strike, arena fighters, even if they, whatever happens to be interesting, man. I just like playing new games with new people, and I enjoy the learning process, and I think that's part of what has contributed to the success of this channel. Is I think it's a little bit refreshing to see somebody who enjoys the learning process, because the learning process for so many other people is so frustrating. So if I'm able to sort of consistently bring that energy and show people that they can learn and be frustrated, and that's okay, but it can also be like a fun, healthy experience, then I think that's kind of a beautiful thing. I think also the other thing that contributed to my success so far is just sort of having a really good constructed plan coming into YouTube. I had always thought about doing YouTube for a really, really long time, so when it was time to actually sit down and put it to the grindstone, it wasn't difficult to do. I had kind of been preparing for a really long time. And I think there are a lot of other people in the FGC that are better players than me, and also I think probably better teachers than me. People who are better at video editing and can put together like a better product than me. But I think a lot of those people aren't very good at like the titles and thumbnails and how they package their content. And I think a lot of the advice that quote unquote gurus on YouTube put out is probably in good faith and maybe works for them in their vertical, but is not always holistic enough in view, and not super helpful. I've considered making videos to try to educate people and try to help other people understand what I understand, but I have no idea if that style of content would do well on this channel. Maybe I make YouTube related content on another channel or something like that. While we're on the topic of YouTube, we'll just do this now. Rider4313 asks how I do my thumbnails. I was on the fence about doing this, but I really don't like gatekeeping information, so I'll just show you guys real quick, fuck it. Before we go over this, just understand that if you blow up a YouTube channel by making thumbnails like this, then I want to cut whatever you're making, or I'm going to send a team of assassins to take care of you, okay? That's just part of the agreement. So, first off, I have this layer. I tried doing something with just a monocolored background, but I think it ended up making things look kind of cheap. So even just a modicum of texture, I think, helps out a little bit. I've also got this picture of Akatsuki, so this is what we're going to be working with for now. I'm going to first make him a little bit bigger, about the size that I think he would be for a thumbnail. And I'm going to duplicate the layer. So now there are 2 copies of Akatsuki on top of one another. Then what I do is I come over here to adjustments, and I add this black and white stuff. And you see it turns everything black and white, but what I'm going to do is I convert it to a smart object, but basically what it does is it just turns that top Akatsuki into a black and white version. So now I've got a black and white Akatsuki, and I've got the version that still has all of the color underneath it. Now I'll turn down the opacity on the black and white Akatsuki, and that basically just makes it easier to see the colors underneath. And all I'm going to do is come and highlight one color by just erasing the black and white part. So I'm just going to erase around the cuffs. We're just going to focus on the red areas. And this might take a little moment. Hey, future me, cut this part of the video out. And another thing I like to do is highlight the eyes. pretty much every time. Just a personal preference. Okay. Now if we return the opacity on this top layer back up, you'll see only those parts are erased. And now we can select both of these layers and scale them if we want to. So if we wanted to make them bigger, we could do this. And I think that looks okay. Now what we can do is above this layer that has the textured background, we can add this hue filter. And we can use it to try to edit this color. And what I like to do is try to, as closely as I can, match the color that I'm highlighting here. And then after that, what I can do is I can add another hue adjustment above the layer that has all the color on it. And then when we adjust that now, it's going to adjust everything underneath it. So if we wanted to make this like blue and green, then we could do that. Or we could just find something else that we like, I don't know, yellow and purple maybe? I don't know. You can experiment. But I like doing it this way because it means that if there's like any color grading that's on the original, like this layer here, then it just changes all of the colors together. It's not like you have to like repaint over it or anything. But yeah, that's how I do it. JJ Ironbear asks, do I think they're going to nerf offense or buff defensive options? No, not in like a major way. I think when people say offense is very strong and defense is very weak in this game, they're coming from like a very skewed perspective. Defense in Tekken 7 was very good, like exceptionally strong. Top level Tekken 7 play was very slow. There was lots and lots of Korean backdashing and just not wanting to push anything because it would be too risky. What the problem with Korean backdashing being so fucking good in that way is that if you can get away from your opponent, you can mitigate having to make like a more important defensive decision. So if I'm far enough away, I don't have to think about tactically sidestepping or ducking under anything or, you know, blocking and then being on point with a punish. I can sort of just like take a breath and wait, and if you whiff something, then I can, you know, whiff punish you and get a bunch of damage off of it. And it was exacerbated not only because Korean backdashes were so good, but also by the fact that Tekken 7 has endless stages as well. So there's never a fear of like running into a wall or anything, which is part of the reason why I like Tekken 8 having stages that are very large, but are not literally endless. But in Tekken 8, I actually still think defensive play is incredibly strong. It's just that the defensive play in Tekken 8 is more deliberate. Like, you have to make a good decision about when to block or when to push a button or when to do an armored move or when to duck or when to sidestep or, you know, what have you. Because you can't just like leave the situation as easily. You're just engaged with the opponent in a close range much more often, and I think frankly that's what a lot of people prefer. Like whenever new players are getting to a fighting game, one of the first things they usually complain about is zoners and people running away and them not being able to touch them. They're like, I thought this was a fighting game, what, not a shooting game? But you know, you put them in a game like Tekken 8, we're now on the other side of the coin where it's like, I literally can't stand up. I don't know what to do. So I think, honestly, defensive options are very, very good in the game. Like, they buffed sidestepping from Tekken 7 to Tekken 8. So it's a significantly better option now. But, again, your defense is more engaged. You have to make decisions more frequently, and they're higher impact decisions. Brinsta says, I never see people hitting Rage Art in higher level videos. I like to read, run in, or whiff punish Rage Art, so much so that some people might say I'm throwing it raw. Am I doing something wrong? I don't just throw it out, I wait for a moment where I can catch the opponent. Is it a scrub maneuver? No. So, tools are not inherently bad or good. So you can't just be like, I use Rage Art, I'm bad. Tools are good within the context that they're used, and you provided two contexts, so let's just talk about them. Trying to Rage Art somebody because they're running in is not a good use of it. Because running in doesn't have any real commitment, they're not locked into running in. At any moment, somebody could just hold back. And frequently, you know, in matches, I'll just run up, especially if I'm playing somebody who I feel like is using this tactic too often. I'll just run up and block, and then as soon as they do it, I just hop kick them and win the round. The other one, whiff punishing, like if you see somebody literally doing a move in front of you, then like, yeah, Rage Art is totally fine. Somebody who replied to this comment mentioned like, yeah, you know, if you could have done a Rage Art as a whiff punish, then you could have done something else as a whiff punish. Not necessarily true. Rage Art, again, does have armor. So being able to react and quickly push down forward 1+2 is not like the same as being able to whiff punish with an electric or something like that. It's significantly easier. But if we wanted to talk about like what I think the best usage of a Rage Art is, I think it's just to close out a game. Sometimes you get a hit and you're in like that high stress situation and you're like, okay, whether or not I win this match is dependent upon landing this combo here. At that point, like, fuck it, like jab them and then just throw out Rage Art. Just to be like why give yourself the execution check? Just close it out. There's no reason. But the TLDR is like you want to be using the Rage Art in a place where it's guaranteed to hit. Not like an instant where they might be able to block. 818 Sector says, yo, I've literally seen people jump off the walls when I have them against it. I've never seen that in Tekken. Is that a universal mechanic or character specific? It is a universal mechanic. You can do back, up, back at the wall, and it does this little attack. It doesn't come up too often because it's kind of a bait. Usually there's a better option that you could be doing, like honestly just being patient and respecting the opponent, but it's nice to have in the back pocket, and it's cool to do, so now you know. Those Bloody Badgers 8499 says, how the hell can you formulate a game plan after just an hour or two in training? I can watch numerous tutorials and character guides, go through the entire move list, and my brain will be just as wispy in the end as it was in the beginning. Head not just empty, head utterly devoid of any strategic thinking. I've been playing fighting games for a really long time, so I kind of know what I'm looking for at this point. And while I can go through an entire move list and build a bunch of plans on my own, I think in reality I also don't retain all of that information. So what I am doing when I'm going through an entire move list is I'm looking for key things. Usually I'm looking for safe pokes that I can do at the 3 different heights. So like, what are my safe highs, what are my safe mids, what are my safe-ish lows? And then looking for what are my payouts. So how do I get my big damage? How do I get my launchers? How do I, etc. And so you sort of play with those safer buttons and try to find information about your opponent. And then once you have information about your opponent, you go into your big launchers. Then from there, what I want to find are like filler combo tools. So when I say a filler combo tool, I mean it's something that I can just do potentially even multiple times in a combo over and over, and I don't have to think about sequencing like multiple different strings together or anything like that. I'm also looking for a tornado move that's very reliable that I can do pretty much every time, and I am looking for wall stuff. So what do I do when I reach the wall? So from that point, I have a couple of safe tools I can poke with, get information, go into my big payouts. I have a filler thing I can do off of any of those payouts. I have a tornado move that I do in the middle of my filler, and then if we hit the wall at any point, I do the wall thing. And then from there, I can go play online a little bit, and when I discover a problem, I can go and try to find a tool that solves that problem. And then I just sort of continually build on from there. You do not need to sit in training room and try to understand the entire totality of your character before you go play online. I remember I've been playing Fang in Red Ring recently, and I was watching one of Chongor's videos, and he talked about up forward 2, and I was like, oh, I literally have not pushed up forward 2 in like an entire week. I didn't even realize the move existed, but that's part of what's cool, is that like you expand your knowledge even about your own character over time. GD Slayer 3385 asked me what kind of fighting stick I use. I get this question all of the time. First, the controllers should not be a priority for you. You are probably not losing because of your controller. I'm just gonna put that in the air. This isn't directed at GD Slayer, by the way. This is anybody who is super obsessed with the controller conversation. As for what I use for my controller, I use a Hitbox cross-up. I'll put a picture of it on screen. It has an arcade stick lever. It has 4 white buttons on the edges for additional directional inputs. So that's for simultaneous opposite cardinal direction inputs, SOCD inputs, and then it's got the regular arcade stick fighting buttons. My stick is stock, so I don't have like a special spring, I don't have a special lever, I'm not using like a bat top, it's just entirely stock controller. Oliver Queen 1853 asked me what kind of card games I play, because I mentioned TCGs in a recent video. I have played all kinds of card games over the years, kind of like fighting games. I'm just somebody who likes to learn and try new games. I'm also developing my own little homebrew trading card game, and have been for a couple of years. It's been a very slow process just because I've been busy with other things, but as part of that process, I played a bunch of different games to sort of just explore different design spaces and see what ideas I liked and anything that I wanted to take for my own. But the big games that I play now are mostly Bandai trading card games. I think they're a step above some of the other developers in terms of just game design. And I'm a big fan of the One Piece trading card game. I think it's had some rocky moments, but overall, you know, it's so much more fun and engaging than many of the other games that I've played at the moment. So, yeah. And also, Bandai is releasing an updated version of the Dragon Ball trading card game at the end of this month, and it's getting its own digital client on the 29th. So I'm probably going to be covering deck lists and some match videos for that game on this channel as well. I mentioned this in a stream, but I would like to incorporate other games and other types of games that interest me on the channel as well. It isn't my intention to be strictly a Tekken channel, it's just what I'm interested in, what frankly all of you are interested in now, so it's what we're talking about at the moment, but eventually I do want to expand and talk about even more things. I think there's decent overlap between the fighting game community and like trading card game interests, and I think that there are other niches that have a little bit of overlap between those two things as well, so interesting spaces to explore, I guess. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Feel free to leave additional questions in the comments. I read all of them, so if I see anything that I think is really good, I'll either address it in its own special video just for you, or I'll include it in a video like this one sometime in the future. That'll do it for now. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.